Hi, and welcome to a new episode of Connecting the Human Dots podcast, where we have raw, unfiltered, unedited conversations about what it means to be human. And today I am super delighted and excited to have an incredible teacher, Natasha de Grunwald. And Natasha is a published author, international breathwork, trauma, and somatic expert. She is the founder of the trauma release method, the potent woman journey, the Seismic Orgasmic Breath experience, which, by the way, I have experienced. She is based in London and Brighton, and she travels internationally to facilitate breathwork events and to teach healing methods for mind, body, and soul. As a powerful speaker and advocate for trauma and somatic healing, she runs events, workshops, and retreats, along with one-on-one client work. And she has over 4 decades of experience as a leading, practicing, and teaching holistic and complementary therapies. And her expertise centers around breathwork, nervous system regulation, and trauma healing, somatic modalities, inner child and shadow work, touch, and somatic coaching. And I'm super, super delighted to have you here, Natasha. Welcome.
Thank you. What a lovely introduction. I'm really so looking forward to our conversation. We always have such beautiful conversations.
Yes, we do indeed. Yes. And I remember when we first met 4 years ago at the Birth Festival in Glastonbury. And it was like that magnetism that pulled us together and kind of having deep conversations right from the beginning. I mean, we didn't talk about the weather, talked about deep things. And then, yeah, the relation seems to be kind of going deeper and different layers that are emerging. And it's been great to also see your kind of progression and also seeing how, even though you've been a teacher, working with touch and the body for such a long time, it seems like there are also over the last few years even more depth.
Absolutely.
And,
Yeah.
and
I
I'm
think
curious to
that,
talk about that.
yeah, I mean, it has been amazing meeting you because we just connected so deeply, so quickly, and had, as you say, these very deep and powerful and healing conversations, which touched me so much. And as we've met there every year, it's just got deeper and deeper, the friendship, the reverence for each other's journeys, I think. And it's been amazing coming to your sessions. And yeah, I've loved our connection. It's kind of absolutely what fills my soul, having those kind of connections in my life, real deep connections with people. And yeah, thank you for acknowledging the journey. It's definitely this last 4 years, I think things like amplified a lot. And I think part of that was me running the Seismic Orgasmic Breath at the Breathe Festival for the first time. It was like a concept that just suddenly dropped in, and then I said to the Breath Festival, could I run this Breathe? And they said yes. So I was quite surprised. And so doing it for the first time there, something happened to me in that moment, and I just thought, this is my work. This is my work, supporting people through trauma and finding joy really as well through on the other side of doing that work. um and so yeah, things, you hear all the time, once you find your purpose, things align and flow, and that's definitely been the case for me over the last 4 years. So yeah, thank you. It's been amazing these last 4 years finding that in myself. Yeah.
Yes, and thank you for sharing, especially that moment when kind of you notice that something emerging in yourself and kind of wanting to share this experience that you created and kind of being matched in receivership and then seeing the ripple effects. And the same, I've seen it for myself, and even this year at the festival, how powerful it was for me and how it supported me to kind of really owning more parts of myself and really owning that shadow and seeing it, what I've done and what has been done to me, and knowing that they can coexist. Yes, and it's been wow. and I would love to talk more about that. And I'm curious in a way, if you want to talk about your journey with touch, because I know that's a key component of your work.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess it started when I was between the ages of 14 and 16 years old. I was physically and sexually abused by my first ever boyfriend. So my first love was incredibly abusive, toxic relationship. And I really shut down. Like my entire nervous system went into complete freeze and numbness. And then I went on, the usual kind of pathway of self-sabotage and hating myself and all that kind of stuff. But it was such a strong experience. I was a child, basically. He was an adult. He was way too old to be with someone so young. And I guess I spent many, many years trying to find my way back into my body and to feel things again. And touch was what I was drawn to because there was a sense of safety around it being therapeutic touch to my body. Not, nothing expected of me other than allowing myself to receive and heal. I have to say, along the way, I've actually had some quite abusive touch in the therapeutic space as well. So, that has all kind of led to this part of me that has such a strong, like safety is just so key for me because I've been so unsafe in so many spaces around being touched. And so, yeah, when I was 18, I went to Thailand and trained in Thai massage, just the sort of bog standard Thai massage that most people think of when they think of Thai massage. But that was the beginning of my journey. And I remember because it was such strong touch, I felt it. um, and it started waking up my body again to not having that numbness. I had other things like acupuncture and reflexology, and I had a mentor that supported me with touch and talking. She did this amazing thing many, many years ago, which I realize now has been quite influential in how I work with people, so she was my first mentor. So yeah, slowly, my body started waking up and I started doing all that inner work with this mentor around what had happened. And it was a long process. Like, I think often people think they're gonna work through this stuff really quickly, but it's been many, 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 many years, like a couple of decades of uncovering like slowly at the pace of my nervous system, what I could handle, to come to a place where actually I like really gentle touch now.
Yes.
You don't need to be, I don't need to feel something strongly to feel something. I'm connected again, and that's also become part of my journey with intimate touch as well, reconnecting to having safety in that area of my life, which took a really long time, many years where I had no connection, no intimate connection with anyone because it wasn't safe for me to go there. So yeah, it's been a massive journey. And I find touch to be this really often overlooked component in the somatic healing space. But there's something really incredible that happens when you are touched with safety and with precision and skill and expertise. And it helps people to open up because touch is like one of the first things we experience, come into the world and we're touched, we're held, we're like cleaned down, we're, put to the breast or whatever it might be. And so we need it. We don't thrive without it. And people are so untouched. So what I've noticed over the years in my work is that when the touch meets the person with the right level, with that expert skilled touch, there's a softening, there's an opening, there's like a place where people start to speak, to be able to access that sort of voice, to say what's there for them. And I find touch this magical way of working with people. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
so
also,
relate to that.
yeah, and it's also very like, we know that we can go for a massage and we can feel more relaxed. So it's very sort of generic in a way. Whereas when we look at things like breath work or inner child work or something, people are a bit like, oh, I'm not quite sure what this is yet. But so touch can be very useful as a place to start with our clients and with each other, because it's very familiar in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Yes, and also, I mean, I very much resonate with what you share, and the same for me, especially this year has been really fundamental for me in the same working with touch. And all of my trainings this year have been about working with touch, and specifically from a developmental trauma. So I very much, I'm kind of putting my hand up. Yes, yes, yes. And I do believe, like a society, Western societies, we are so touch deprived. We are so hungry for touch.
Yeah. It's really sad, isn't it? It's really sad
Yes.
how lost people are, and how disconnected they become. Like, it's still very common that people will say, can you go deeper?
Mm.
It's one of my pet peeves actually with clients. If they say to me, can you go deeper? I don't actually get clients like that anymore because I don't work in that way. But for many years as a massage therapist, can you go deeper? Can you go deeper? And it's like, no. I mean, I can, but that's not what your body needs. And it was always like almost like a red flag of someone saying, can you go deeper? That it actually means, can you soften?
Mm.
Nervous system is not, I can't feel anything. So I need you to get in there deep so I can
Yeah.
feel something again. But actually, is there another way that we can get you to feel something that doesn't
Mm.
involve no pain, no gain, elbows in the body kind of approach,
Yeah.
Yeah. So people are so disconnected.
Mm.
Mm.
Yes. And also kind of with the more awareness is brought to the importance of using touch, inquiry, that curiosity, and seeing actually the ways, because also if we look at touch metaphorically, is that how are we being touched
Mhm. Yeah,
physically and emotionally,
exactly.
energetically.
Yeah, and how the two are so intricately linked.
Mm.
Yeah, and that need for pushing and something to be happening. Is that how we live our lives?
Absolutely. Yes.
Um,
So I'm curious kind of how do you use, like, for example, breath work, somatic work, inner child work in the context of touch and in
mm,
the context of the trauma
mm,
work?
mm. Well, how I work and how I teach people to work is to really meet people where they're at on that day, and to have quite a long exploration, holding a lot of space and giving a lot of space for someone to be finding out where they're at, because often people come in and they have no idea where they're at. They're not connected to how they're breathing or what they're feeling or what's been happening or how they've been reacting to stuff or whatever it might be. So quite a large part of the session will be an inquiry into that. And then depending on where they're at and what they need, I mean, there's pretty much always some type of breathing, but it won't necessarily be a connected breath. It might be some functional breathing, or it might be just some deep inhales, or it might be that I'm working with a process that I've developed to use the breath to get people to connect to something that happened way, way, way back. Because the breath will bring us the memories, and it'll bring us what we need. It'll bring us the memory that we need to work with, if we give it a little bit of space. So then we'll work with this process, getting people to connect to that inner child, having a conversation with their inner child, letting the inner child speak to the adult. It's a very beautiful thing to witness. And then moving forwards from it, like when you see that client has got the information or revelation or the connection to the thing they needed in that moment, then it's like we move through it. And sometimes then someone will be feeling really upset, we get a bit of movement, some shaking going on, or maybe some sort of somatic work where they're reclaiming their power again, or just seeing what the body needs to express. And then sometimes it will be like, okay, how would it feel for you to just lie down and relax? That's been a big process. Should we work with the fascia? Should we work with some spinal nerve work? I mean, I won't ask them that because they won't know what those things are, but I'll be guided by them to what touch techniques might be beneficial, because it might be just things like, through the course of the inquiry, I discover that their shoulders are really tight. So this is, sort of indicating a lot of tension, a lot of fight, flight kind of holding in their body. So might work with some techniques to just, like with the fascia, which is this very old part of us. It's like one of the first fabrics to develop in utero, as I'm sure you know, and then the heart is the first organ. So I might work with working with just letting the body kind of soften through working with the fascia, or maybe their guts are really churned up and they're feeling really tense in their tummies and they've been having trouble with, constipation or diarrhea or just griping pains in their gut. So then I might do some spinal nerve work or work with the neurovascular bundles. I mean, it's really just sort of, although there's a lot of guidance around what the techniques do, there's also some intuitive work there around feeling into where that person is and with your own nervous system felt sense. So that's kind of how I'll work with clients, which is great because I never get bored, and as someone who's very fast, it's great for me because it's a creative co-creative process with a client, which I find to be a beautiful way of working. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. And the same kind of, yes, that co-creative process, and also kind of because it comes with so much, not only professional skills, but also so much like personal wisdom that you have, and that intuition, like you said, about, because we're all very unique. So in terms of what our system, what our bodies or minds might bring up in a moment, it's so unique. And then having the skills in pulling from the threads, energetic threads or wisdom or knowledge or skills that we have, to bring it into the clients, into the space, into the present moment for exactly what it's needed. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful way of working. And I remember when I was just, like I say, just doing massage, and I'd have these clients saying, can you go harder? It was all very much like, it would exhaust me because I was doing something to them. Whereas this is a really different way of working, very connected to the nervous systems of each other, myself and my client, and finding that place where we meet as well, it just takes the pressure off. Like, you have a responsibility to work with the best that you can, but you're also not having inappropriate responsibility because you're empowering your client to have a responsibility for their session as well, which I think is really important. And the other thing that I was just going to say is, sometimes a client will arrive and the first thing will be touch, because they're so disconnected from what might be felt in the body, that by just going straight into grounding their body with some sort of beautiful therapeutic touch will be the thing that then they can open up and talk about whatever else is happening. So yeah, it's just an amazing way to work. I love that I've brought these things together now and found the thing.
Yes.
And also, trauma isn't always like, we're not always having to go into past, inner child work. Trauma is held in the body in terms of a scar tissue. That comes from a trauma, right? Or a trauma of not being able to work for a year because you've got incredible sciatic nerve issues that are preventing you from playing with your children. That's a very traumatic way of living. So
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for bringing those nuances, because trauma doesn't necessarily need to be something big. We're not saying those things, of course, exist. And unfortunately, for some people, they have happened. But also, they could be, yes, like all of these areas where there might be a chronic illness, or there might be chronic pain, or there might be various life events that can happen either through a period of time or just one. And we don't, and also, yes, surgeries and scar tissue that we don't know how the body responds to that. And we do need the support to help work through those. I'm curious, because we were talked about the about touch being, or in the society that we live, we're so touch deprived. I'm curious, how do you find people, if they're open or not with working with touch,
Mm.
or
Well, I
even coming
suppose
and teaching or learning? Sorry, about even coming and learning about working with touch. How have you found in terms of the people that you work with?
I find that a lot of people are quite scared to touch people, mainly because they don't want to cause harm, I would say, but also just that idea of the sort of honoring of someone's physical body and not wanting to cause harm, and not yet getting the sort of nuances of pressure, and maybe that also that people coming to learn touch still might not have such a connection to their own bodies, so then they won't be able to gauge that space of what they're doing and what they're receiving, because when we touch someone, we're also in receivership
Mm.
of the information that's coming back. So I find it quite an amazing thing to watch people connect to and learn, and it's very empowering for people, I find, to feel like, because it's so innate in us to touch, actually, that it's often just under the surface where it's there for us. But just, yeah, I find it a beautiful thing watching people finding that place where they can touch, where they have the confidence to, and then seeing what happens when they use these different techniques. I often, in our WhatsApp group, reading the feedback that my students' clients are giving them about the touch, and how much that excites people and makes people like suddenly like, I never thought I was going to be someone that used touch in my business because I'm a coach, but wow, that's something else. So yeah, I find it really exciting. And also I feel like for the world at large, the more that people are connecting to their bodies in this way, receiving therapeutic touch, giving something that's so therapeutic through the physical body, I think it's really magical. I think it builds a confidence on quite a deep level, because I think it takes you back to something that is just there, but you've lost. And
Yes. And
so,
often it doesn't have words,
mm,
something so profound.
mm, I agree. Yeah. And I think often, some of the ways that we hold our bodies, it's a very old pattern there. So, and just with, the body knows what to do with the right input, it can very quickly find that sort of balance again, and come out of acute and chronic pain, or um, and I think the importance of not being pushing with that is really important.
Mm.
Over the years, I've taught a lot of people who've done very deep styles of body work, and they're exhausting their own bodies through working in that way, and are starting to be sick of the way they're working. So a lot of those people come to me because the way I teach isn't exhausting on our own bodies at all. Um, and then they fall back in love with it, because they realize that actually the gentle meeting that person's body where it's at, it can still be powerful. Don't get me wrong. You can still have like structural realignment, and pelvises readjusted, and the temporomandibular joint put back in place, and all this stuff, but it's gentle touch, because the body knows what it needs. It doesn't need to be pushed.
Mm. And the
Yeah.
body, greatest desire is to go back to balance and homeostasis. And then
Yeah.
we can provide that in a way that it needs, then we can just trust it that it will do that. Yeah, I very much agree with, and the same from my somatic experiencing training and everything, even though, yes, either touching or gentle touch, once it touches into the body and the body structures, then it knows what to do. And all of a sudden you notice that you're carrying yourself differently. That posture that you used to hold, you're either not holding it or you're not holding it in as much, or you're more aware, or you've been noticing the shifts without just doing very intense physical body work. Yeah.
It's exactly like the breath. Like we can just take a few just like slightly deeper breaths and just the physiology changes.
Yeah. Ah,
We both need to breathe at that point.
yes.
It's so simple. It's so like we don't have to force for this cathartic thing to happen, because just with a few breaths, everything can change, you know.
Mm.
We're like, oh,
Yeah.
I feel relaxed again now, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm.
There's two other areas that I would like to go into or explore. One is about you developing your own method and how, yes, and bringing that into the world, the trauma release method. And also really want to share with people, because there's something that they don't know about you, may not know about you, your passion for dissections. And when you talk about the body, you know a lot of the body and about what happens underneath the skin.
Great. Yeah, I love talking about both of those things. I'll start with trauma release method. I think it's just been like I actually started running workshops when I was 11 years old, which is just bizarre, and would never be allowed now. But that happened, and my mum was very progressive in the way that she did things. So I grew up in an environment where it was very much about feeling your feelings and expressing them, and that was quite leading edge really back in the 80s. So I've always been on this journey, and, you know, having talked about the things that happened, I think, you know, this work, this body of work that I've created has not been you know, pulling things together quickly kind of thing. It's, and I've seen what works, and I've seen what thousands of people need over 30, 40 years. And so I used to be the UK leading Thai massage teacher. And that went through all kinds of stages as well, because originally I would have taught the Thai massage that people know, palming, you know, thumbing, pressing, and stretching, which is a very sort of broken down way of teaching Thai massage. But that's what I knew at the time. And then I started writing this book, and I was researching, and I found this whole lineage of Thai medicine that existed. And then I was like, ah, oh, this makes sense. And within that, Thai massage and Thai body work is just one tiny little speck of this whole body of medicine. So I went and studied with a kind of, they're called Rusi, they're like a Thai shaman, became part of this lineage, and started teaching what I'd learned through there. Told all of my students, everything I've been teaching you up until now is a corrupted version. So now I'm going to teach you the real deal, because I never have a problem with owning up to things, as I'm learning and growing all the time, as we all are.
Yeah.
So then I was teaching Thai medicine in a much more sort of honoring the ancient practices way. But still, I found that a lot of that people don't really need. Like, people don't really need to be stretched. Sometimes people need a bit of a deeper pressure, like we've talked about. But generally, working with things like the spinal nerves, working with neurovascular bundles, so the nerves and the vessels, which basically involves working with the pulses in the body. So it's very gentle work, but it resets the nervous system in an incredible way, and can be used for pain and all sorts of stuff. This to me was the work that was like This is working with the physiology. This is working with the nervous system. This is what people need. They get the touch, but they get the deep work, some visceral work as well. I do some of that too. And then working, so I kind of pulled the things from that medicine that I find here in the West are what people really need to get into their bodies, and to start having, relief from pain, whether that's emotional, energetic, or physical. So I kind of pulled that together, but at the same time, I was also doing in my own clinic, majority of my work was working with Bowen technique, which is this absolutely magical, fascinates me every day, this, because you do so little and I have such incredible results. I've had men contact me sobbing on the phone because they're in so much pain and their life is in shatters. They're about to have spinal surgery, and I say, come and have 3 sessions with me, and they'll have 3 sessions, maybe another 3, and cancelling the surgery because they're back able to, it's like, it's absolute magic. And I love it. And also with that work, I can work with multiple clients in an hour. So I was able to increase my income, and still, without any of my clients ever complaining they weren't getting the work they needed done. So it's like this incredible way to teach people to work, because most people are working in the wellness industry and struggling to make ends meet, and it's heartbreaking. So just sort of bringing all those things together, bringing some very gentle breath work into the space, and then also the somatic coaching, because as we've talked about, you start opening up the body, people start talking, so it's important to be able to work with what comes up for people. So just over time, I've just sort of brought all those things that I've been doing for so many years together with my clients into a space where I can teach it. And it was really working with Bowen technique that got me very interested in the dissection, because I was like, how is this working? Like, I don't do very much. And in fact, I spend a lot of the time not even in the room with my client, letting their body do what it needs to do. And this is just incredible. So I got the opportunity to go into a dissection lab with my incredible teacher and very close friend, Gil Headley. And I went initially to do a 6-day dissection, and I thought I was just going to learn anatomy, but oh no, I saw God. Basically, I'm not religious, but I saw God. I saw God in the body. I was like, and I saw myself mirrored. And having had all the sort of self-hatred issues around my own body, I saw this beauty in a cadaver, a body that had been embalmed. I would cut away the flesh and see the superficial fascia, the fat layer, and just see such beauty. But then I was like, well, how can I see beauty in that person's body, but not in my own? And every day you go deeper into the body, removing the body layer by layer, until eventually you're in the kind of nervous system, you're in the viscera, you're in the brain. And it is just, every layer has a different energy. Even in that dead person's body, there's still like a different energy in the room as well, with all the other people dissecting bodies. And the way that my teacher teaches it is, one, to have fun, because you're there for an exploration, and that person has donated their body for you to learn from, and then go off into the world and share that knowledge with all the people or share your skills with more and more people. So it's incredible. It's a real gift that people think that way when they're alive, to leave their bodies in this way to people, to look in their bodies, and yeah, so you kind of explore the body, and you start to unravel what happened in that person's life, because you can see things, like you can see where people have had operations, you can see where maybe they were suffering with terrible inflammation in their guts, or where they'd had their ovaries removed, or maybe they had organs the opposite way round to the way we think they lie in the body. I mean,
Wow.
yeah, it's just amazing. And it's done with such respect, but also as a sort of so it is fun, because you find yourself doing the most bonkers of things in a dissection lab that you never thought in a million years you would do in your life. Like, using great big choppers to open up someone's ribs, for example, to look at the lungs, or to hold the heart, or to look through someone else's eye when you've dissected their eye. And it's just like, oof.
Oof.
Yeah. So you kind of get to, I got to know the body intimately through my hands,
Yes.
and through my felt sense, and through
Mm.
my presencing
Mm.
this world, this inner world. So my teacher calls us somanauts, explorers of inner space, and it is like that. You go into this universe and you get kind of lost. And then
Yeah.
when you come out, it's like you've had like the most profound experience. And I did that many, many, many times. I think I've done 30 days of dissection in my life in that way. So I've more than any doctor, it's kind of amazing. So when I teach about the body, I know it. I might not know all the names of the origins and insertions and muscles. That doesn't actually interest me
Mm.
at all. But what interests me is the layers, and the energy, and the connections, and the beauty.
Yes. Well, thank you for sharing that. It's really touched me
Mm,
hearing you talk about the body like that. And like you said, about knowing the body intimately from the inside out, and also knowing the body through your felt sense. And the same, that is such an embodied experience.
yeah.
And actually, the way you take it then into the world is through that embodied experience rather than the cognitive. That's also important to some extent, but it's not only through that cognitive awareness where you're just to name the, I don't know, the muscle or the bone or whatever, where it has no relational aspect to it. It's, and I think only naming various body parts is a way we objectify ourselves or our body parts, while, like you said about you knowing it so intimately, it's relational.
Yeah, the wholeness of us.
Yes.
So, and there's some amazing things, like when you see maybe 6 embalmed bodies all in a room together, and you look around and you see all these, yeah, you see all these different shapes and sizes and genders, and then you start exploring them, and you realize that, like, that person's viscera, you can see it's theirs. Or, it's like you kind of know, oh yeah, that's because we name all our cadavers, we give them names so that we have
Mm.
something to sort of refer to in the lab. But you know that, like, Joan's viscera is Joan's viscera. It's not David's viscera. So it's just really interesting.
Yes.
Um, yeah, I mean, I wrote a book. My book is called Thai Massage Dissected, and it's a mixture of the Thai massage journey and teachings, but also mixed in with the dissection experience, because I found they completely intertwined, which was amazing.
Yeah.
In Thai body work, we work through the layers of the body, always honoring the superficial before we go deeper, And that's exactly how we dissect the body. We start with the skin, we take all of the skin off, and then we start going deeper. And so it was incredible doing that. Yeah, I'm really hoping to do some more again soon.
Yes. Well, thank you for sharing. I think this is such an important aspect of the work because, like you said, the wisdom that you have, the skills, the knowledge, it's so embodied. it's such at a deep level. And this is the work that then you bring to others in teaching others through all of the
Yeah.
lineages you
But
have.
it's funny, isn't it? Because it really started with me being disconnected from my body. And so all of my journey, when we all think about our journeys, we all find that everything was leading us forwards to this place. Like, yeah, and I would never have known that as a 14, 16-year-old girl getting beaten up, that actually it would become my work and it would touch so many people. And, that's super fulfilling for me.
Yes.
Know that there was a gift in it, even though I mean, what would I have done had that not happened? Something else completely, I'm sure. But this was what I was born into. So, knowing that it touches people and I get to do work that's really important to me is, what a privilege life can be.
Yes. And thank you so much for sharing your gifts with us.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm.
Hmm. And I'm curious also about we spoke before we started recording in terms of where are the men in this work?
Yes. This is like really intriguing to me at the moment, because I know there are men doing work with trauma, but I haven't had one person sign up to my trauma release method that's been a man so far. And we're just going into our second cohort. And I'm like, men, we need you to be doing this work. The trauma release method is part inner work and part professional work. So you can't do the professional holding space and working with trauma unless you've looked at your own. And I'm like, we need men to be doing this work more, 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 more. So this is a call out, really a call out to men to come and do the inner work and do the professional work, because we need men to hold it too, right? Why is it only women called to this work at the moment? I'm wondering, I'm so curious. Do you have any thoughts about that? How's that feel in your body?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And it's something that I'd noticed in my own trainings, my professional trainings that I have done is mostly women. Um, and what comes to mind is that there's a different kind of vulnerability for men to be in these spaces with, and some of them not quite there yet.
Mm,
And what comes to mind is that actually in my somatic experiencing training, our cohort, we were actually very fortunate. We started off with 9 men out of 50 students, and we were 8 or 7. And I hold them so dear, all of them, each and every one of them. But I could see the difference because
mm,
those men that they kind of stayed with the training and they really, really committed to their own explorations from various fields, but really committed to their own healing
mm,
and the capacity to be vulnerable with their own pain.
mm.
So I'm curious whether some men or a majority of men, they're not there yet.
Yeah, I wonder too. And as you say that, I feel that in my body too. And it's kind of what I've been feeling and thinking around it. And also just acknowledging that as women, when we're in spaces where there are men that are able to hold vulnerability and hold our pains and the presence and that sort of masculine energy is just so healing. And
Deeply.
and then I also think about the young boys that are
Mm.
like how important it is for the next generation to know that that vulnerability of a man is so important, and we need it, and we need them to see that happening.
Yes.
So for so many reasons, I want some men to come and do this work with me. I just feel it so strongly. it's so important. You know, having been a young teenager going through trauma and seeing what young people are going through, whatever gender they might be, knowing that we do this for them, right? We do this healing for the next generation to guide them and show them the way as well. It's just so important. So
Yeah.
important. I feel emotional talking about it.
Yeah, likewise. And I very much resonate with what you share. And, you know, there's parts of the stories that we also share. I know, yeah, being in toxic or unsafe relationships. And yes, and I've noticed the same with me, even in trainings, kind of how perhaps my nervous system can become unconsciously hypervigilant to, even though kind of, well, he's safe, he's okay, we're here, we're talking, but then my system is telling a different story. So kind of being curious about that. And also what I've noticed, for example, having more men in space, how it changes the field, and how perhaps not only women, but I think men as well, can really go more into the edges, into that masculine, feminine energy, and where is the healing and where it needs more healing. And it's
Definitely
very powerful. Very
is.
powerful.
Really is. And when I've been holding like the seismic orgasmic breath, for example, there's been a lot of men have come to that. And at the end, you know, when we have integration time where people are sharing their experiences, it has touched me so deeply. You know, it's like, oh, it's just beautiful to hear men speak and speak through their pain and their vulnerabilities and be in the space where they're able to share their pain, because we all hold trauma, you know, school, for example, bullying, you know, this is deep traumas that are held in our bodies, and we all have it. So we all need to go there. We all need to be in a space where we're helping other people or guiding people or facilitating some
Absolutely.
of that work. Yeah.
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 Ooh.
I know.
It's very, very deep.
Yeah.
And I'm curious is kind of as we coming to an end, just to see what's alive in you right now.
Mm.
Or once.
Quite emotional from this conversation.
Mm,
I realize how much it matters to me. I also feel excited that and privileged,
yeah.
and so grateful for the work I do with people.
Mm,
And I'm
mm,
excited about the sort of what's this coming in this next year, and the people that I get to teach and work with. And I know there's going to be a lot of great stuff happening. So I feel very honored and
yeah,
happy.
absolutely. And I'm curious, what does it mean to you to connect the human dots?
Mm. I think it's like bringing together all of the things that we don't even know exist in us. The way that, I can feel your energy through this online platform, Zoom, the way that we can suddenly have a thought about someone that we haven't seen for years and reach out to them, and they're like, I can't believe you contacted me today. The way that we can have a conversation like this and it touch us so deeply. So I think connecting the human dots is that beyond what we know is possible.
Mm. Mm. Oh, that's really touched me. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Yeah.
Thank you for all your amazing questions.
Thank
Yeah.
you. I have one final question, and then for you to share where people can find you, and also to talk when the next trauma release method program starts. But before that, I'm curious, is there anything from your adult self, adult consciousness in this moment would say to your younger self?
Um, yeah, she'd say, I'm sorry that you were so misunderstood and taken out of your being allowed to be so sensitive when you were so little, and that you learned that wasn't okay. And I'm here to show you that those parts of you exist now in me. Oh, I really saw her. She was naked, holding a hose in her grandparents' garden.
So sweet.
Yeah.
Mm. And I thank her too for being here and allowing us to see her.
Mm,
And thank you,
thank
Natasha. Mm.
you. Love you, Teo. I love your work. I love what you bring. I love
Thank
connecting.
you.
And I'm very excited that you're going to be a guest teacher in our next cohort. That is alignment.
It is my absolute great honor. In talking about the next cohort, what would you like to share about it when it starts? How
Starts
people.
really soon. So we have an orientation session. I think it's this Tuesday, the 17th of September. And then we start a week later into the training. It's a hybrid training, so it's online. There's live lessons and live mentorship sessions. And we also have a graduation retreat in a year's time. So it's a year-long training, which is great because it feels spacious. And we've just come back from the graduation retreat, which was just, I haven't landed back after that yet, but it was just something else amazing to bring everyone that have been working together so deeply over a year, coming together in person in a physical space. It was unbelievable. So yeah, we start the training every year. We have space for 16 people maximum, and we still have space for a few more. We're not quite at capacity yet. And I'm always up for talking to people if they're called to the work and they have questions. I'm always available for
Super.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And where can they find you? I will put all of the
Yeah,
details
thank
in
you.
show notes.
They can find me on Instagram, my name, nice catchy name, Natasha.de Grunwald. And my website is the same, natashadegrunwald.co.uk. I'm pretty active on Instagram, so that's a good place to, easy place to find me. That's it, I think. That's kind of where I hang out.
Super.
Thank
In the good places.
you.
Yes.
Mm. So
Thank you.
yeah, I'm excited and thank you. It's been just a beautiful morning's conversation. And now
Likewise,
I'm off
very
to play
encouraging.
tennis.
Woo-hoo-hoo. That's what we didn't talk about. Your love for tennis and also how important is also, yeah, that physical movement and being coupled with play, with fun, with that sense of his healthy competition and healthy movement. Yes.
Yeah, and focus and it brings up all the things. That is my practice at the moment. It's like a healing practice for me, and a great load of fun. So yeah, I'm hoping that I thrash my partner today.
Woo-hoo-hoo. Excellent.
Uh, Thank
Super.
you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So much love.
Bye.
Bye.